I watched a YouTube video today that put words to a tension I think a lot of people feel but do not know how to say clearly. Cultural relativism is useful. Actually, it is necessary. It stops you from looking at someone else's clothes, food, manners, family structure, religion, or traditions and instantly thinking that is wrong. Because a lot of the time, wrong just means that is not what I grew up with, which is just your comfort zone talking. It is not a moral argument, but there is a point where tolerance stops being wise and starts becoming cowardice. There is a point where that is their culture becomes a polite way of saying, I do not want to deal with the fact that people are suffering. So that is the line we are going to discuss. So let's begin. First, difference is not decline. Some differences are just differences. Hijab or no hijab, living with your parents as an adult or moving out at 18, eating with your hands, chopsticks, or a fork, being direct like a German engineer or polite like someone trying to escape a conversation without hurting anyone's feelings. Who cares? A fork is not a moral achievement. It is a utensil. A buzz cut is not social collapse, it is hair. A family living under one roof is not automatically failing. In some cultures, it means support, childcare, intergenerational stability, and actual family life instead of everyone being isolated in their own little apartment. Pretending independence means never needing anyone. Even arranged marriage needs more nuance than people usually give it. Forced marriage is obviously wrong, but a voluntary arranged marriage, where the person actually consents and trusts their family or community to help them choose well, is not. You can view it like structured dating with more family involvement. Maybe it is not for you, which is fine. Not everything needs to be for you. That is where cultural relativism does its job. It saves us from confusing the personal preference with moral truth. Most judgment is you pretending to be ethical. This is where people get themselves in trouble. They see something unfamiliar and immediately reach for a moral label. Degenerate, backward, oppressive, uncivilized, wrong. Sometimes those words are accurate. Often they are not. Often they just mean, I have a strong emotional reaction to this thing, and I would like to pretend my reaction is philosophy. That is weak. If someone dresses differently, eats differently, parties differently, speaks differently, or looks differently, you need a better argument than, it feels weird to me. Does it hurt anyone? Does it remove someone's freedom? Does it make children less safe? Does it deny people education? Does it trap someone in violence? If not, then calm down. You are allowed to dislike things, but you are not allowed to turn every dislike into some universal law. Humans are not blank slates. So here is where the argument turns. Yes, cultures differ, but no, that does not mean every culture is equally good for human beings. Humans are not infinitely flexible blobs that can be shaped into anything with no consequences. We have deep, universal preferences. We do not like pain. We do not like starvation. We do not like slavery. We do not like being chronically unsafe. We do not like being separated from people we love for no good reason. We do not like being treated as less than human. We want some autonomy. We want some dignity. We want children to be cared for. We want the chance to learn. We want rules that do not protect elites while crushing normal people. These are not Western quirks. These are human basics. You can welcome difference and still have a checklist of things that go too far. Having both is the mature position. Not everything is fine. Not everyone should live exactly like me. I believe the mature position is a lot of difference is beautiful, and a lot of suffering is not. Harm is not culture, and this is where cultural relativism breaks. Spousal abuse is not a harmless tradition. Slavery is not an alternative economic model. Girls being denied education is not a cute cultural detail. Female genital manipulation is not just how some people do things. The WHO, World Health Organization, says more than 230 million girls and women alive today have undergone FGM, which is female genital mutilation, and it classifies the practice as a human rights violation. Afghanistan is not just different because girls are barred from education beyond the primary level. UNESCO, or UNESCO, United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization, has described Afghanistan as the only country in the world where girls and women are forbidden from secondary and higher education. Modern slavery is also not some ancient problem we solved and now only talk about in history class. The ILO, International Labor Organization, Walk Free, an independent human rights foundation, and IOM, International Organization for Migration, estimated that 50 million people were still living in modern slavery in just 2021, including forced labor and forced marriage, which means in 2026, millions are still in slavery, which is appalling and ridiculous. This is why every culture is equally valid becomes insane when pushed too far. Every culture is not equally valid. Not if people are being beaten. Not if children are being denied education. Not if women are treated like property. Not if citizens are starving while leaders eat comfortably. Not if people are enslaved. That is not diversity. That is suffering with better branding. Safety counts too. Safety is one of the most underrated human needs, mostly because people in safe places forget what unsafe places feel like. If your kid cannot walk to school safely, if your business gets robbed, if your neighborhood is controlled by violent people, if you hear gunshots outside, you do not experience that as some abstract policy debate. You experience it as hell. This is why El Salvador is such an uncomfortable example. The country's homicide rate fell dramatically from its peak, reaching a historic low in 2024, according to official figures, but the crackdown also came with suspended rights, mass arrests, deaths in custody, and serious due process concerns, which means both things can be true. People desperately want safety, and governments can abuse power while providing it. That is a hard thing to accept about our world. If you only care about civil liberties and ignore the families trapped in violent neighborhoods, you are missing something. If you only care about order and ignore innocent people getting swept up by the state, you are also missing something. The point here is not that safety justifies anything. The point is that safety is not optional. A culture or system that leaves normal people chronically unsafe is failing at one of the core jobs of civilization. So, what do we do when a culture crosses the line? Once you admit some practices are actually wrong, the next question is harder. What do you do about it? The first option is to pretend everything is fine. This is the cowardly version of tolerance. Who are we to judge? This is just their way. Maybe they like it. No! Little girls do not secretly love being denied school. People do not secretly love slavery. Spouses do not secretly love being abused. Children do not secretly love being neglected. That is nonsense. The second option is to respect sovereignty and accept that cultures change slowly. This is not a stupid view. War is horrible. Foreign intervention often creates new problems. A country trying to forcibly remake another country can become arrogant, destructive, and clueless very quickly. So yes, humility matters. But humility cannot become moral sleepwalking. At some point, we should be careful because we are doing nothing, and doing nothing is still a choice. The third option is to have a decency cutoff. Below that line, pressure becomes justified. Social pressure, political pressure, economic pressure, legal pressure. In extreme cases, maybe even military pressure, although that should never be spoken about casually because the costs are enormous. But the basic idea is simple. There should be a minimum standard for how human beings are treated. Below that standard, that is their culture, is not enough. Freedom needs rules. This is not only about faraway places. It applies inside a country too. A healthy society can be extremely welcoming. It can let people bring their food, language, religion, music, clothes, holidays, family traditions, and weird uncle stories. Those are all good things. They are all part of what makes a country alive. But welcoming people does not mean accepting every practice they bring with them. You can wear traditional clothes, you can speak your language, you can eat your food, you can pray how you want, you can celebrate your holidays. You cannot force someone into marriage. You cannot keep children from school. You cannot abuse your spouse. You cannot treat adults like property. You cannot claim your culture gives you permission to violate the basic rights of another human being. That is not xenophobia. That is civilization. The best societies are not blank slates where anything goes. They are places with wide freedom inside firm boundaries. Lots of room to be different, no room to brutalize people. So what's the line here? Well, the cleanest way I can think about this is to judge cultures and systems by human outcomes, not aesthetics, not tattoos, not hair, not food, not clothes, not volume level at parties, not whether people use forks. Judge the stuff that actually matters. Freedom, slavery, education, dignity, fairness under the law, care for children, economic opportunity, the ability to build a life without being crushed by violence, corruption, starvation, or forced obedience. On those metrics, some cultures and systems are better than others. That should not be controversial. If one dog is tied outside in freezing weather, another dog is eating garbage beside a dumpster, and another dog is at a good doggy daycare with food, warmth, play, and care, those are not just three equally valid dog lifestyles. One is clearly better for the dog. Humans are more complicated than dogs, obviously, but the principle still holds. If a system helps people live safer, freer, healthier, more dignified lives, it is better. If it does the opposite, it is worse. Cultural relativism is valuable because it stops our ego from pretending to be morality. It reminds us that difference is not automatically decline, which is a huge deal. But some things are actually wrong. Not because they are unfamiliar, not because they offend our taste, but because they violate the basic needs and dignity of human beings. So the rule is simple. Do not confuse weird to me with wrong, but do not confuse their culture with a permission slip for suffering. That is the line we all need to be made aware of and adopt. And what you just watched and listened to was me reading my Substack post about the topic of when tolerance becomes cowardice. Difference is beautiful until it becomes a permission slip for suffering. So thanks for listening. Feel free to subscribe to echoimprovement.com for free. And there's some other links like my daily email I write, short 2-minute read if you want more from me. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.